What's up, my bros? It's Game Legend 88 here, back in our video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the entirety of the M17 series and its various prototypes. Yeah. So yeah, I say we get into this. So yeah, I'm going to be going into all the series of the. I'm going to go into the entirety of the M17 series and all the prototypes I can get into. So this will be quite interesting. Not sure if I'll be able to get this into one video. Might have to make it a two-part video. But yeah, let's get into it. So starting off, we're going to go into the prototype phases of the M17, which started with E13 series prototypes in the around the early 50s. These were being developed as early as the early 1950s. This was never a rushed design. I have to get this out here. Most people think that the U.S. Army wanted to come up with something real quick and fast and just, threw it out there. That is very wrong. Because most people believe that that's the reason why it has such a crappy cheek filter design, and no, it's actually not, because the United States Army went with this design. Because they started with the E13 series prototypes in the early 50s and went through several revisions, and then they got to the E13 R4, which was Experiment 13 Revision 4, and that was the first mask to use cheek filters, and they preferred this highly over the screw-on canister threads of the earlier prototypes of the E13 series. So they went with that cheek filter design because it was lower profile and lighter weight. Most people say these masks aren't that lightweight. Actually, this is untrue. In fact, most modern masks are heavier than this thing, so it's actually not true that these are not light in the slightest bit. This went through several more revisions until the E13 R10 revision, which I believe I have a photo of the E13 R10. It comes out of Johannes Muller's collection. I'm 99% sure that this is an E13 R10 face piece. Mainly because I can't find any other M17 mask that has the chemical core logo on the outlet valve cover, and it appears to have the experimental style filter caps with the pull tab on them. And that is another thing I'm going to go into. The earlier revisions of the face piece had filter caps that had pull tabs. Now you may be wondering why the hell didn't they stick with this filter cap design, and it's actually because the pull tabs didn't really hold up well, and they would just snap off when you tried to pull them off a lot of the time. So they didn't go with that design, and that's why there's no pull tab on the filters. And that also explains quite a little nifty thing I'll show off real quick, which is this right here. As you can see, there's this little indent here, and for a long time nobody knew what this was for. That's what it was for, is that back on the earlier prototypes, they had a pull tab right here that you could pull the filter cap off. And they never removed this feature, so it just sits there and does literally nothing. So it's kind of just like a leftover piece from the experimental phase that was carried out through all the designs of the M17. They just never cared to get rid of it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I'm gonna put the photo up here now of the what I believe is an E13 R10 face piece. I have no proof, though I'm pretty sure it's an E13 R10 prototype. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's what I believe to be an E13 R10 face piece. Yet again, I have no proof, so take it with a grain of salt, as I am not sure. But yeah, the ABC M17 was introduced after this E13 R10 prototype, and as what they did, they just slightly modified it and adopted it as the ABC M17. And yeah, that's the ABC M17 I was just showing off there. So I guess we'll get into the ABC M17 now. So here is the ABC M17. As you can see, it is quite an interesting design with the cheek filters. You can see the filter caps, which are an early style. The earlier style ones had more mesh on them, which is quite interesting. Not sure why they didn't stick with it. You can also see the outlet valve cover, which is it's just bare. You got your voice diaphragm right there, which this was the first mainstream U.S. Standard issue mask to have a voice diaphragm. Besides the M3 diaphragm masks from the Second World War, though this was more mainstream. And that, yeah, this outlet valve cover is made in let's see, that is January, February, March, second week of April, 1965 by MSA. For some reason, the outlet valve cover was replaced on this one. I'm not sure why that is. That is one thing. I believe there was some sort of problem with the earlier outlet valve systems, because I've figured this out. Most M17s you'll see, even the early ones like this one right here, they will have their outlet valve cover replaced by a later MSA one, and I believe there was some sort of flaw with the earlier ones that caused a malfunction in the outlet valve system and possibly broke the seal or something. But that's what I believe, at least, because it's kind of strange that they would replace the outlet valve, whole outlet valve assembly if there was nothing wrong with it. As you can see, this one is actually a pretty rare face piece. It's made by Firestone. These are relatively uncommon. You see them less than even the DT ones. DT, I believe, was the company that actually started producing them first. And then I think then it was later Firestone and MSA, because I haven't seen a single 1961 dated one by MSA, so I believe only DT produced them very early on. But yeah, as you can see, this one is made in 1962 by Firestone, specifically the last week of October 1962 by Firestone. And they started production, Firestone started production in the last week of January 1962 for their face pieces, which is quite interesting. You can also see I have optical inserts in there. These are the early wireframe style that would be issued with these. As on the later series of masks, I'll get into it later, but they had a different design for the glasses, or whatever like you want to call them, the optical inserts. These early ones were just wire and frame, and then they would pop into the back of the thing in between the lenses and the TSO deflectors, and it would seal together. Now, as you can see, it has an C8 R1 harness, which I believe is the exact same used on the M9 series. I could be wrong, though, because I'm not sure. I mean, when I compared it to a harness from an M9 series mask, it was the exact same. So I don't know. I'm not sure. That M9 could have been like an earlier style harness, like a C8. I'm not sure. But yeah, you can see the size stamp, which is a size small. You know, this is just your typical run-of-the-mill one. I'll fold over the harness real quick and show you the interior, and then we'll get on to some later masks here. But this is actually the least common of the M17 series you'll usually see. It's actually relatively uncommon to find these original ABC M17s, especially the Firestone ones. I believe the Firestone ones are actually the rarest out of all the ABC M17s they can find, because I never see them for sale. But yeah, you can see the interior there. You can see how the nose cup wasn't properly buttoned into place, or whatever you want to call it, like clamped into place when they reinstalled the whole assembly. You can see the outlet valve down there, maybe not. The nose cup's the size medium. I also replaced the inlet valves in the oral nasal cups since they were completely disintegrated. But yeah, that's essentially what the M17 ABC M17 is like. I'll go into a few early accessories here too. One of these right here is the M5 Ointment Kit. Now, you may be saying, dude, what the hell? Why are you involving the M5 Ointment Kit in here? Those were adopted in 1944. Why the hell would they be used with the ABC M17 series? Well, you see, here's my argument. Let me grab my carrier here. This is the early model M15 carriers for the original M17. This one did not originally come with that M17. The one that did come with it was a M17a1 Carrier, which I'm showing with my M17a1, obviously. Yeah, this says Mask Protective Field, M17. You got someone's name there. Manny Torres, I believe. Yeah, this is the early style one with the Alice clip patch. And in the interior, it has the bigger pocket for the storage stuff, and no little clamp on the interior to hold your accessories in. But what I'm getting at is the decontamination kit pouch right here is smaller and it's wider. Now, you see, when I put the M5 Ointment Kit in there, give me a sec. Yeah, when I put the M5 Ointment Kit in there, you'll see here that it's literally, that it fits in there perfectly, and it can just barely close. as you can see, it fits there. It fits in there literally perfectly. Okay, so that's what I lead to believe it. And you see, I have an M13 Decontamination Kit right here, which is a Vietnam War era one. And if I try to put it in, see, when I put it in, it doesn't fit. And there's and it's all weird and janky. So as you can see, it would appear that the M5 Ointment Kit must have been used with M17 Series early on. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'll show a few more early accessories. I can get this back here. So I'm gonna go on to a few more of the accessories here. One of the things I do want to talk about is the spectacles, the storage stuff for the spectacles and the fill-out forms. As you can see, my spectacles came with the original box. These spectacles are January 1966 dated and were issued in June 1967 to someone by the name of Henry N. Easley, specifically Major Henry N. Easley, in June 1967. And I have the fill-out work right here, which I'm going to try to cover up his service number there so you can't see his service number. But yeah, his age was 33. His name was Henry N. Easley. He was a major. You got his corpse right there. You got his gender, obviously male. And as you can see, it's crossed for gas mask spectacles. You can see it was for initial use. We've got his magnifications. The prescribing officer, which is S. Shelby, I believe. Or was that Sherber or something? And you got the lieutenant, which is Stephen O. Sherburne, first lieutenant. And let's see. Actually, that is the exact same thing I just realized. Let's see. And let's see, where is, you can see the special frame that he needed, which is quite cool because he needed a special frame, which was an upper marrow frame. You can see where he got it from, which was the Madigan General Hospital in Tacoma, Washington. It's kind of cool because I bought this spectacles kit from Centralia, Washington, so it came from quite somewhere near there. And as you can see, it was from the U.S. Army Optical Activities Sharp Army Depot in Lathrop, California, which is quite cool. You can see some more stuff there. It's cool. So I'm gonna put this back down here. You can see also a card that it came with that has like all the stuff that the box says right there. Well, pretty much just like an overview of what's there. But yeah. I'll also go into the M8 chemical detection paper, which I believe was introduced in like the mid-60s. This one is from the 80s. But yeah, it's essentially the little thing that you would dip in chemicals, and it would change color, and you'd refer to a chart in there, and it would tell you which chemical it is, so that you can refer to some sort of manual that would tell you, like FM 2140, I believe, or something like that, and it would tell you what you're supposed to do with that certain type of gas. But anyway, I'm going to get into the later years of Vietnam, around the mid-years, which was 1966. So now we're going to be getting into 1966. In 1966, tons of prototypes of the M17 series were coming out. And this is quite an interesting thing, but there's three most notable prototypes that came out of this. The M17 series, which I will hopefully find a few photos here, or at least find the later silicone version and put it up here. So that is a, an M17 A2, I think. Or no, that might be an M17a1 or A3, I'm not sure. The M17 A2 was made out of Class B rubber. If I can find that, I will show that up here too. But yeah, the XM27 was one of the prototypes they came up with. Another prototype was the XM28 series, which you can see right there. This is a final adoption model of the XM28, the most common version. A lot of people say these are pretty rare. They're not really that rare. In fact, I see them about as much as I do ABC M17s, so they're not that rare. I mean, they definitely made quite a few thousand of them at least. Probably tens of thousands. because they had like a 2-year production span, so they had a decent amount of runtime. So you do see them a lot, and I do believe they're not actually that rare. I'll show you the XM28E4 here. This is the XM28E4, also nicknamed the Grasshopper mask. This is made out of a silicone rubber, a green silicone. And this mask was made in, let's see, looks like the first week of May 1969 by MSA. MSA was the only company that produced the XM28, if I'm correct. The outlet valve is dated later in 1969. Face piece size is a size medium, as you can see. This mask was intended to be super lightweight, low profile, and fit in a compact space. I'll show you real quick, but the face piece was intended to fold over like this, and then you'd store it inside a carrier, which I do not recommend doing this if you want to have the longevity of the mask. If you want it to last longer. Essentially, you'd fold it up and put it in a tiny little carrier, which I'll put a photo up here because the one I have is completely trashed. So yeah, that's what the carrier looks like. You can see the interior of the mask, which is like a giant nose cup, and in there's like you can unbutton the filters and replace them. It's actually relatively uncommon to find filters for them, though they were replaceable. So yeah, that's essentially the XM28 prototype. It's quite interesting. Put this back here. And then another mask, which may come to a surprise to you or not, was also developed in 1966, known as the E13 R13 Face Piece. Now, the E13 R13 Face Piece is, it's actually technically right here on the table as we speak. Not table, I mean bed. But, yeah, it's right here as we speak. And that right there is that mask right there. And you may be wondering, that's an M17a1. Well, that's exactly what the E13 R13 is an M17a1. That's its experimental designation. And the E13 R13 was introduced in 1966 at the same time as the XM27 and XM28 prototypes. So they were producing a lot of prototype masks at the time. So this is the E13 R13 face piece, also known as the M17a1. This one is technically later enough to be the M17a1, as it was produced in the last week of September 1970, so it was past its adoption time, since they started production around 1967. So if you got like a 1966 produced one, I believe it'd still technically be an E13 R13 face piece. But yeah, this one was produced in the last week of September 1970. This was the first mask to actually adopt a drinking tube system, not just in the United States military, but other countries as well. Patents go back to the First World War, though, for drinking tube systems, so they never carried through up until now. And yeah, this is the M1 Canteen Coupling, a very, very nice design. It held up for quite a while, as it was used up to the 2000s, and I still think it's a really nice drinking tube system. So yeah, as you can see, it has a lever here, which turns two ways. If you turn it to the left, it turns the drinking tube into your mouth. If you turn it to the right, it turns the resuscitation tube to your mouth. You can see the hood that's on it, which is a M6 transitional M6A2 hood. I call it transitional since it has the metal slider that the M6 hood would have. And if you go to the back here, it still has the little tab on the back here that's usually missing for the cord. I believe the reason why they removed that back tab was because when you're wearing this hood, if you try to take it off, it can get the cord can get stuck on the back of your head and it won't want to come off, so it makes it harder to take the mask off. I believe that's why they did it. But I'll show you the interior and the stampings in there. As you can see, I'm missing the original M6 hood, which only has like one piece of Velcro and also no zipper. And it has that same metal slider and stuff, which would be for that original ABC M17. But there you can see the hood stamps, maybe. Hood CBR mask M6A2. This one's early enough to have the early CBR designation instead of NBC or whatever the heck you want to call it. As you can see, the mask, you can see the stamp there on the mask, which says last week of September 1970 by MSA. And you can see the C8 R1 harness right there. I'll fold over the interior here, though I guess real quick I'll show you the side stamps there, the lot number. I never showed off the lot number on the ABC M17, though. It's the same thing, as you can see. All mine have pretty faded lot numbers. But I'll fold over the head harness real quick. So, here's the interior of the M17a2, as you can see. It's essentially the same purpose, or design, I should say. And but as you can see, right there, it has a resuscitation tube and a drinking tube. If I could show down at the bottom, you can see the two torque. You can see the torque, areas and the springs. And down there in the bottom, there's a plastic cage assembly that contains two outlet valves. That is right. The M17a1 did have a double outlet valve system. And also back here, not sure how well it'll show up on camera, there's a little indent here in the rubber, or, pointy part. And that has little holes in it to install a second style type of lenses, or optical correction inserts. And those would just have little prongs, and they'd stick into the sides, so you wouldn't have to install them via wireframe. Though wireframe was still considered better through the 70s, as it wouldn't fall out as easily when you were putting on the mask, or at least that's what I heard. Though wireframe were still used obviously in the 70s. It says in TM34240 1975 edition that they still use wireframe optical inserts. But yeah, this also has a size medium nose cup. The face piece is a size medium, so it's quite a typical mask. You can also see the black inlet valve discs. Actually, maybe you won't, because, lighting's not too great here. There you can see them. I was doing some research, and I was looking through the technical manual, 4240, and I came across quite an interesting thing. Apparently, there was such thing as winterization valve discs. Apparently this was a thing. They had like butyl, like a butyl inlet valve discs that you would install in the filter caps and the oral nasal cups so that they wouldn't freeze up, which is quite interesting. So yeah, apparently you'd have those issued with a winterization kit, which is quite interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the M17a1. Oops, sorry about that. I literally just like bumped the hell out of the camera there. But yeah, that was the M17a1. And the M17a1 stayed in service for a while. I'll show off the carrier real quick. Sorry if you see me on camera here. Again, sorry for bumping the freaking tripod. But this is the M17a1 Carrier, or also known, this one is I think an M15 Carrier. It could be an M15a1 since it has a lot of similarities to the M15a1, though it still has something that was retained on the M15. But yeah, as you can see, it says Mask Protective Field M17a1. This one originally came with my ABC M17. But yeah, as you can see, it has a later pocket, which fits the M13 Decontamination Kit, which I will show off here. I'll put in the M13 Decontamination Kit. As you can see, it fits in there perfectly. So, this is designed for the M13 kit. And as you can see, this is missing the Alice clip patch, though it does have the bottom pouch here for the waist strap, which is like twice the size of the one on the older M15 Carrier, which is quite interesting. And on the interior, it has the little retaining strap for the accessories down there, which is not really going to show up on camera, but you can take my word for it. But yeah, that's the I call this a transitional M15. It still could technically be an M15a1, though it has the pocket for the waist strap, so I'm still calling it an M15. So that's pretty much it for the M17a1 series. I'll show off a few accessories that I have for the later style kits from like the late 60s or 70s. Right here we have the M13 Decontamination Kit, which was still in use in the mid-70s. As TM34240 1975 edition lists only the M13 Decontamination Kit, so it would appear the M258A1 kit was not introduced until like the late 70s. This one is dated July 1966 by Pyronics Corporation. and everything is there. I don't really feel like opening it up because it's all powdery and weird and leaking, so I'm just gonna leave it closed. Let's see, right here, I'll show you TM34240 1975 edition, as you can see. This one is for the ABC M17 and M17a1 field protective masks, as the M17a2 wasn't introduced until 1953, 1983, not 1953, what the hell am I talking about? Yeah, this has tons of stuff and diagrams and everything. This doesn't have a notice about the chromium in the filters, though, as this was before they did any research into the chromium things. So I will show real quick. This is how I know that they still used wireframe outserts, as it does show in the 1975 edition that they still used wireframe. Yeah, this has a bunch more stuff in there, but it's quite neat. So, I guess I'll go to, quite a few years later, in the late 1970s and early 80s, the M17a1 was obviously still in production and was still being used heavily. And by that time, the ABC M17 had mostly been phased out for training and issued to law and been exported to law enforcement and surplus stores and stuff. And but in the early 80s, specifically 1982, they were doing field testing with the M17a1, and they found out that the resuscitation tube was faulty, and this caused the resuscitation tube to leak most of the time when you were trying to resuscitate a gas casualty victim. So they figured this out, and they were like, oh, Jesus Christ, we've got to remove this immediately, my God. And they came up with, and they actually didn't come up with anything, is what they did was they took an earlier prototype and adopted it instead. So then they introduced the E13 R12 Face Piece, which is, if you remember, the M17a1 was the E13 R13 Face Piece. Well, the M17a2 is the E13 R12 Face Piece, so it's an earlier prototype that was never adopted until the early 80s. So they literally just pulled an early prototype out of somewhere from 20 years ago, and then just adopted it since it didn't have the resuscitation tube. So I'll get on to the M17a2 here real quick, if I can get into it. So here we have the M17a2. This one is 1984 dated, if I'm correct. Yeah, it is dated the first week of July 1984, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, this one needs a bit of work. As you can see, it's missing the inlet valve discs in the nose cup, because I had to use the inlet valve discs to replace the ones in my M17a1's filter caps since they were missing, probably disintegrated. Which I have some replacements on the way, and they should be here later this week. But yeah, my M17a1 is also missing outserts, and those should be here tomorrow. But yeah, as you can see, this one has the later M6A2 hood that's more common, that has the metal slider like a boonie hat, and has the extra Velcro on the hood. Obviously, it still has the zipper, and as you can see, it only has the drinking tube system. As you know, it's an earlier prototype that didn't have the actual resuscitation tube. Though some M17a1s were converted to M17a2s by cutting off the resuscitation tube so that you could not use the resuscitation tube, which is quite interesting. So you can find M17a1s that were repurposed into M17a2s. And as you can see right here, that back little loop for the cord is missing, as this is a later M6A2 hood. Let's see if I can let's get this over here. And then right here I'll show you the stamps, which it says hood chemical biological mask, and all the other numbers is kind of screwed up. But as you can see, I have the harness right here, which is actually a harness off of an M9, which I'm using until I can get a replacement C8 R1. That harness over there is a C8 R1, though it's that's the one that originally came with it, and it's beat to hell, so I just didn't use it. I just threw this one on here. This one is this mask definitely has a decent amount of use. A decent amount of the lacquered finish is worn off the buckles, though nothing detrimental to the rubber because none of it is missing where the hooks are in the rubber. It's mostly just on the outer stuff. And let's see, I'll fold over the head harness real quick and show you the interior of the M17A2. So, let's see if I can get this over. There you have the interior. You can see the drinking tube in there, maybe. And the nose cup. But, yeah. This one is a size small to size medium nose cup, like my ABC M17. But yeah. That's pretty much it for the interior of this mask. There isn't as much to note. Obviously, I'm missing a few accessories, too, so I can't really show off some stuff like the Resuscitation Tube for the, the actual resuscitation piece for the M17a1 and stuff. And I don't have the tinted or laser outserts or anything like that, so yeah. So we'll set this down here. And then right here you can just see another waterproofing kit, which I believe is a slightly later one than the earlier one I have there. And right here you can see the M15a1 Carrier. This is obviously different than the M15. This one is originally for an M17a1 that was reissued for an M17a2, as you can see. This carrier has been used a hell out of. It's got 3 separate issue markings on it. You got a 132, a 19, and a 127 all over it. Like, you can see them everywhere. You got the 127 right there, the 132 and 19, 132, 132, 19. Again, bump the freaking tripod. This one was dyed darker for Desert Storm. As you can see, it's missing the L-clip patch, obviously, because it's an M15a1. Down here, you can see that there's no pocket for the, waist strap, which was removed on the M15a1. And it has the end of the pocket right here is designed for the I forget what it was called, the M258A1 or whatever. Forget 258A1. I think that's what it was. Forget. And then down there you can see it's pretty much the same, except you can't see. And it has the clip or the retaining loop for the accessories and a smaller pocket. But yeah, and the M17a1 obviously saw use through Desert Storm, and was being replaced in the starting to be replaced in the early 90s by the M40 and MCU series masks. There also was a few prototypes of the M17 too, like the M17a2 IM, which was a vehicle crewman's variant. I don't have a photo of it, but it was essentially an M17a2 with a comms plug mounted directly on the exterior of the valve cover assembly, and it had the microphone port of an M25a1 tank crewman's mask, or vehicle crewman's mask, I should say. But yeah, there was a few prototypes of the M17a2, but the M17a2 was mostly phased out in the early 90s. The M17a2 still did see some service through the late 90s with the extra small variants, since the M40 and MCU series didn't come in extra small variants, though they were completely replaced in the early 2000s by the whatever you want to call them, the M45 series Land Warrior masks and Air Warrior masks. Those prototypes, pretty much. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say prototypes. They were technically adopted, though they were never massively produced. And because the XM project came with like extra smalls, and I think even extra smalls, which is quite interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll show off this TM34240 from 1987 off here, and it has, all the accessories. It has a destruction notice, distribution notice, and stuff like this. Apparently these are not supposed to be exported, or at least by the time they were used, they were not supposed to be exported. And also this one has the health safety thing for the chromium filters, as they did a research in the early 80s on that, and that says they have chromium in it, so yeah. Well, I mean, they already knew they had chromium in there, obviously. The United States have been using chromium in their masks since the early 40s, but yeah, they only did research into it in like the early 80s and found, they found it was a little bit dangerous, and they did some more testing and eventually found out it was practically harmless, though they did have that warning on there, though. I'll just throw this off to the side, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. As you can see, this mask went through several design changes and stuff. It's quite neat. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely a long one. Probably be one of the longest videos on my channel if I can even export it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and have a nice day.